Welcome to this tutorial. This one will be Rockwell Automation's Product Configurator, and we're specifically going to discuss how to configure the programmable automation controller itself. Also, we'll be looking at how to look at the I/O modules and a power supply, depending on what PAC you have. So with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to open up our web browser. We want to go to rockwellautomation.com. Okay, again, I'm going to go to the 9 little dots up here. It should say Tools if you hover over it. So I'm going to select that. Select Product Configurator, and in this one I'm going to show you, this is the first one we're going to look at. And again, do not get hung up on the question numbers because they may be different on your test. So this one is asking us between this controller, because this right here is controller, this 1769-L24ER-QB1B and this 1769-L24ER-QBFC1B. So we got to know what the differences are, because if you're ever trying to select the correct product, you have to know what the differences are, because this one here may give you everything that you need. Why buy this one? Because it's more expensive. So the one we're actually using in class, just for your info, is this controller here. This is the one that we have in our cabinets in the classroom. But anyways, as you can see, most of the numbers and letters are the same, but there's just a few little differences in it. So here's the things that we have to do. What we have to do is say, what are the differences? So if we have to open up, we have to search both of these numbers, look at the information, and find out what's different. So you'll only check the things that are different. Don't check all the boxes. You check just what's different. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to select one of them. So I'm just going to do a copy and paste. So I'm going to go into here, copy that number into there, and do a search. So here this is. Now, if I go back to here and get the other number, and like I said, you can write these down. You don't have to copy and paste them. You can write them down and then go type them in. There's nothing wrong with that. So the only way it's going to let us, what I wanted to do was add another one to that. I don't think it's going to let us, so what we'll have to do is open another window, open another instance of the Rockwell Automation Configurator. So I want to accept that again. That way I've got this description. Then I want to go back to Product Configurator. I'm going to paste in this part number, do a search. Okay, so now if you can see I have two different ones, two different windows up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag to drag this other one out. Then I want to make it to where snap it to each side. Now I should be able to look at both of them side by side. And then based off, okay, if I go down to that question number, okay, so it says the number of Ethernet IP and TCP connections. So the first thing is, let's take a look at that. This one here has 2 Ethernet IP ports. Let's see, so TCP, where's the TCP connections? Okay, 8 Ethernet IP and 120 TCP connections. Okay, so let's look at the other one. does it have the same thing? 8 Ethernet, IP, and 120. So those are the same. So therefore you would not check that box. Now we would say number of Ethernet ports, Ethernet IP ports. I'm sorry. So it says that this one has 2. Let's take a look at this one. This one has 2. So you wouldn't check that one. Okay, number of high-speed counters. You would come over here. You would see if this, how many high-speed counters this one has. This one right here says 4 high-speed counters. Okay. What does the other one have? This one does not have high-speed counters. So there is one difference. So that is one of them. So you would check that. And what you would do is just continue down. So we'd say memory size of SD card. Now here, do not get this right here wrong, because what I'm looking for, it's supplied with, let's just take a look at this one. It is with a 1 gigabyte SD card, can support up to a 2 gigabyte. What I'm looking for is this right here. It comes standard with this 1 gigabyte SD card in it. Okay, don't get hung up on this 2 gigabyte, because there's going to bite you in another question, and you're going to get that wrong. So when I'm asking for the gigabyte of the SD card as one of the attributes in later questions, make sure you're always giving me just this, not what it can support up to. Okay. Now what we need to find out is with 1 gig SD card. So that's the same. So that's not what we're looking for. Number of analog outputs. Let's take a look at that. Do you see anything in here? Yes, I do. I see 4 universal analog inputs and 2 analog outputs. So what's it asking us for? Number of analog outputs. So let's take a look at this one. Is there any mention of analog outputs or inputs or anything? It specifically is asking for analog outputs. I don't see anything over here. So again, that's going to be another difference. Right here it says number of universal analog inputs. This one here has 4 analog inputs. This processor here has none. So that's also going to be another difference. Okay, let's check the memory. So this processor has 750 kilobytes of memory. This one right here does as well. See right here. So that's not it. And this may be all of them, but let's go through them all just so we can make sure that we get through one of them together. Amount of memory. Oh, number of USB ports. We just done memory. Okay, so it says it's got 1 USB port, 1 USB port. So that's not a difference. Embedded input, embedded power supply. So let's just take a look and see what we got here. Okay, right here we've got on this one a 24 volt DC embedded input, embedded power supply. You see that? Okay, let's go to this one. And it says 24 volt embedded power supply. Okay, so that's not different. Number of DC outputs. Okay, how many DC outputs? This one right here says it's got 16 DC outputs. This one here says it's got 16 DC outputs. So we don't check that. Number of DC inputs. Okay, this right here has 16 DC inputs. What does this one have? 16 DC inputs right here. So that's the same. So we don't check that. Now, number of 1769 I/O modules, expansion modules. So remember, I/O is input output modules. Okay. So this right here, let's see what it has. It says up to 4 1769 I/O expansion modules. Okay, so you can expand it up to 4. And this one right here, same thing, 4. So that right there is the same. So for that one right there, these are the things you'd have to check. Okay, just remember that. Just always read, and don't just if you wrote it down or whatever, don't take it that the questions or something didn't move around or the answers didn't move around. So always read them, always check them out, just to make sure that you get these correct. But there's how you use that. So I'm going to close that window out. So the other thing that I want to show you from that right there is there's going to be other questions that's going to show you this right here. So it says use the product configurator to find the following list of attributes. So we just had that list right here. This right here, this description, is what I'm considering attributes. So, and if we go back, that description is going to, again, this is going to be right here. So these right here are the attributes that we're looking for. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this catalog number, and it's almost the same thing. This is the same one we just done, but I'm going to show you again, is that we're going to go back to here. I'm going to reset this to where we can go back to, well, I'm going to go back to go back again, start with a clean slate where I see catalog number. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this number. I'll hit Control C. I'm going to Control V. I'm going to take that period out that I got in there, and I'm going to do a search. Okay, so here's the attributes. So I'm going to bring that over to here so I can look at it at the same time I'm looking at this. Okay, so here we are. So it's asking how many Ethernet IP ports. So there'd be 2. It says how much KB memory. So you don't have to type in the KB. So when you look over here at the memory, all you have to type in is 750. You don't have to type in the KB. All that stuff is in there for you. So we're just wanting the values. So how many DC inputs? Okay, it's 16 DC inputs. How many DC outputs? 16. See? Right here. And we just got through doing this on the first example. Right here it says how many Ethernet IP and TCP connections. Now remember, you've seen this up here, Ethernet IP ports. That is not the same as Ethernet IP and TCP connections. That's different. So make sure that you look. It's right here. 8. So it's 8 will go in the first blank, and 120 will go in the second blank. Because say there's 2 different blanks. I've had people try to put the same thing. Now I always check them manually, but just letting you know, it's easier if you just get it right the first time. Make sure you put them in the corresponding blocks. And my Windows kind of where I've got it, had it narrowed up. You'll see it looks better like this. I have it like this so that I can show you the attributes why we're looking at the quiz. Okay, let's go on down. So it says VDC input embedded power supply. So that's this right here. So there's going to be a 24. And it says blank GB SD card. This is where I was telling you, I'm not looking for the can support up to 2 gig. I want the 1 gig because that's what it comes with standard. It has 1 USB port, and you see that right here. And what I want you to do is look these things up for yourself, and it can up to blank 1769 IO expansion modules. Again, we just learned that just a moment ago. It can expand up to 4. Okay, so we're going to do a 4. Universal analog inputs. There is going to be 4 universal analog inputs. So 4. How many analog outputs? 2. And then how many high-speed counters? There's 4. Okay, so that there is how you do that there, is use the product configurator. If you know the catalog number, it's pretty simple. You type it in and you look at the attributes, and you make sure you can retrieve the data that I'm looking for. And I would not Google this because I cannot guarantee you that you get the same results. So this is the easiest way. You go to a website, you go to the configurator, type in a catalog number, get the information. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to be able to select a controller. So let's just say this question 9 right here. Again, this may not be question 9 on your test, but it will be on your quiz somewhere. But you're going to use the same product configurator, and you're going to give me the catalog number for a controller with these attributes. Okay, so this right here is going to be the hardest ones to get. So this is what I want to show you. So I'm going to minimize this. Let me get over here. Let me get this right here back. Now, here's the thing is, if you don't know exactly where you're at, go back, you can hit reset, but if you ever feel like that you don't know where you're at, you can just close the window and start again. It isn't that big of a deal. So, in order to configure something based off information, so let me show you. So this information, let me get back to it. Okay, right here. So we got to look for a 5370 L3 controller with dual Ethernet, with DLR capability, 2 megabyte memory, 16 I/O expansion, 32 Ethernet IP nodes. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. You got to know how to get here, or you will not get this right here correct. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is be in the product configurator. You have to know what family, what component are you looking for. So I want to show you for PACs, PLCs, any of that type of jazz, you're going to go to programmable controllers. So if you click the little expand arrow or click on the header itself, it's going to expand down. And this is kind of how this works. You just work through it methodically. Okay, so we are using PACs. So we are not using PLCs. So only be in this top category, programmable automation controllers. So we're going to select that. It's going to fly out some subheading. And we're going to live in this area right here, the 1768/1769 Compactlogix system. And that should be familiar, that 1769. We've seen that a few times already in catalog numbers that we've been configuring. Okay, so we're going to select that. Once we do that, here's all the different things that we can look for in the Compactlogix family. So we can look at controllers, communication modules, I/O modules, power supplies, and so forth. So in this class, on this quiz, you will need to be able to go to controllers and find a controller. You will need to be able to identify I/O modules and power supplies, because those questions are also on this quiz. But for now, we're going to go to controllers. Okay, now I want to go back to this right here. Says for a 5370 L3 controller. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is find the 5370 L3. So see, automatically out of all the controllers, I've given you the information that you need to keep on selecting, to keep expanding and drilling down to the part number that you're going to give me. So here's the Compactlogix 5370 L3 controller. Okay, now here's all the controllers that's available in that series. So now what you have to do is be able to go through all these controllers and find out, and right here's all the information right here. Pick which one matches with this information. So I would start looking at these numbers, like the 2 megabytes of memory, the 16 I/O expansion, the 32 Ethernet IP nodes, because there's not going to be multiples that have these same answers. So I'm not going to give you the answer to this one, because I just ain't going to. So anyways, all you should have to do is go through here and find out which one, and that's the number you'd put in. So if it's, let's just say if it was 1769-L30ER, that's the number that I'm looking for, is this number here. So you'll find that number that corresponds with the description. That's the number that you'll put into your quiz. Okay? You'll just enter that here. Alright? So now, for the I/O modules, so I'm going to show you that one. So you've got two questions on your quiz that's going to be talking about input module and an output module. So we're going to use the same configurator. And if you'll remember what I just told you, is that we're going to go back. Oh, I went back too far. Sorry. So I'm going to go back in. Remember where I said here's the controllers, communication modules, I/O modules, power supplies? Here's the I/O modules. So you have to go to the right families, and we're in the Compactlogix. That's where we're going to live, nowhere else. And we're going to go to I/O modules, expand down. So now when we go into the back to the quiz, let me get to that. Okay, so the first one's going to be a 16.24 volt DC syncing sourcing input module. Okay. So the first thing is that if you, well, it keeps moving every time I go back to it. This right here, I'll just let you know, is going to be a digital I/O card. This is also going to be a digital output card. So what that means is that this input card is either going to be on or off. The inputs are on or off, digital, discrete. The relay outputs are also the same. They're either going to be on or off. So these cards are not analog. That should be a good pointer for you to make sure you get this correct. This is digital I/O that we're using right here. That's what these cards are. So don't be looking in the analog. So that being said, we're going to go look at, see, we got analog in here. So you can automatically rule them out. We want digital input. That's the first one we're looking for. And in here, you're going to look for what I was telling you over here. Wish I didn't keep doing that. A 16.24 volt DC syncing / sourcing input module. Okay. So you're going to go down through here and find out which one of these part numbers. So you see it only goes down so far. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like eight selections. So you got you just got to narrow it down by the description and give me the catalog number. Whatever the catalog number is right here, the 1769 dash whatever number is what you would put into your quiz. Okay? Now the same thing here for the output module, except for same thing but different. So we're going to go back, and I told you that those are going to be all the way back. So let's go back into Compactlogix, I/O modules. We know it's going to be digital contact output modules, so it's digital. And then here you're going to find which one of these three. So we only got three options here for us. So you're going to pick which one of these part numbers, catalog numbers here, correspond to this. Has 16 point VAC VDC relay output module. Give me the catalog number, and that'll be that. Okay, there's one other item that has to do with the PAC. Let me see if I can find it, and I'll explain it. Okay, so this right here is it's question 2 on this quiz. Just remember, it may not be that same number on yours, but it's looking for a power supply for a L3X and a L3Y Compactlogix power supply. So it's going to be 120/240 VAC input at 4 amp. So basically what it is that you can either supply 120 volts to this power supply or 240 volts AC to it. And it's going to be able to supply an output of 5 volts DC or 24 volts DC. So the capacity at 5 volts is going to be a 4 amp. See what I'm saying? 4 amps at 5 volts and 2 amps at 24 volt. So we have to make sure we can configure that. Again, when we're in our configurator, I'm going to bring this back up. Here's our controllers. Here's the I/O modules. Here's the power supplies. So I'm going to open up power supplies. Look, there's only one selection under that, so we're going to click that. Okay, so now you're going to see that there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. All 4 of them have the L3X and L3Y. Okay, so now we got to find out which one is 120/240 input. Okay, that brings us down to 2. And then you got to figure out which one has the correct load that we're looking for. Whichever, when you find that number, that's the number you'll put into your quiz. Okay, that should be fairly simple. I hope this right here helps you understand a little bit more about Rockwell Automation's Product Configurator, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.